Have you ever had one of those days where you look around your life and on paper, everything looks exactly as it should, but inside, nothing feels right? You sit in your car after a long drive, staring at the dashboard, and this heavy, unnamable weight just settles over you. The engine is off, the keys are in your hand, and the house is just a few steps away, but you can't bring yourself to open the door. You are present, but you are completely empty. It's not a sudden crisis or a dramatic breakdown. It's just a quiet, persistent whisper telling you that something is missing. We spend so much time trying to outrun this feeling, filling our schedules, ticking off boxes, and wondering why the achievements don't taste the way we thought they would. But that ache isn't your enemy. It is the first honest signal that you have drifted away from yourself. Think about how much energy it takes to pretend that everything is fine when it isn't. You go through the motions of your day. You sit at your desk, you reply to messages, you prepare dinner, and you nod along to conversations with a polite smile plastered on your face. To anyone watching, you look like a person who has it all figured out. You look responsible, grounded, and stable. But underneath that calm surface, there is a profound sense of isolation. It feels like you are watching your own life happen from behind a thick pane of glass. You can see the people you love. You can see the work you do. But you can't actually feel any of it. The joy feels muted. The excitement feels forced. And even the sadness feels distant and numb. We live in a culture that values doing over being. And because of that, we treat this inner quiet disquiet as a problem to be solved. We assume that if we are unhappy, it must mean we aren't doing enough. So, you try harder. You wake up earlier, you pack your days with more tasks, you try to learn new skills, or you rearrange your daily habits. You tell yourself that if you can just get through this busy week, or if you can just finish this next project, the feeling will go away. But the weekends come and go, the projects end, and the hollow sensation remains. It sits with you at the breakfast table. It rides shotgun with you on your morning commute, and it keeps you awake at night when the rest of the world is fast asleep. This quiet disquiet is actually a form of grief. It is the sadness of realizing that you have built a life based on what you thought you wanted, or what you were told you should want, rather than what actually feeds your inner self. You might have the stable job, the comfortable home, and the predictable routine. But if those things don't align with who you are at your core, they will eventually start to feel like a cage. It is deeply disorienting to feel lonely in a room full of people who love you. It makes you feel guilty, as if you are being ungrateful for the good things you have. You start to blame yourself, wondering why you can't just be happy with a life that so many others would dream of having. But your dissatisfaction isn't a sign of ingratitude. It is a sign of growth. It means the version of you that built your current life has done its job, and a new part of you is trying to emerge. When nothing feels right, it is usually because you have outgrown your current emotional wardrobe. The habits, the roles, and the expectations that used to fit you perfectly are now pinching and pulling, restricting your breath. Carl Jung once remarked, "The pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Right now, your mind might be telling you that it makes no sense to feel this way, but your inner self operates on a completely different logic. It doesn't care about what looks good on paper. It only cares about what is true. This heavy, silent ache is actually an act of kindness from your deepest self. It is your inner life refusing to let you settle for a half-lived existence. It is turning down the volume on the external world so that you are forced to listen to the internal one. When you stop fighting the emptiness and simply allow yourself to feel it, the nature of the feeling changes. It stops being a terrifying void and starts becoming a space of potential. It is an invitation to pause, to take a step back from the relentless momentum of your daily demands, and to ask yourself the simple, honest question that you have been avoiding for months, or maybe even years. What do I actually need right now? It takes immense courage to sit in that quiet space without trying to fix it. But that is exactly where the path back to yourself begins. We become incredibly skilled at building versions of ourselves that please everyone else. You learn exactly which version of you gets the applause, which version keeps the peace, and which version avoids the conflict. You put on the professional persona for the meeting, the agreeable persona for the family dinner, and the resilient persona for your friends. Carl Jung once observed, "The pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." We get so caught up in the sense of what we are supposed to do that we don't realize how heavy that mask has become. Eventually, the person in the mirror looks like a stranger, and the energy it takes to maintain the facade leaves you entirely depleted. Think about the sheer amount of emotional labor that goes into keeping up appearances every single day. From the moment your feet hit the floor in the morning, you are anticipating what the world expects from you. You anticipate the tone of voice you need to use so you don't sound too demanding, the expression on your face so you don't look unapproachable, and the words you choose so nobody thinks you are struggling. You become a chameleon, shifting your colors depending on who is standing in front of you. If someone asks how you are doing, the word "fine" slips out of your mouth automatically, before you even have a chance to think about how deeply exhausted you actually are. It feels safer to hide behind the mask than to risk letting people see the messy, uncertain reality of what you are living through. But the tragic part of wearing a mask is that even when people love you, it feels hollow. Deep down, a quiet voice whispers that they don't actually love you. They love the performance you are putting on for them. They love the version of you that never complains, the version that always says yes, or the version that has everything under control. So, even when you are surrounded by family, colleagues, or lifelong friends, you feel completely and utterly alone. You are trapped inside your own ribs, watching everyone interact with a character you created, while the real you sits in the dark, starved for genuine connection. You begin to realize that the armor you built to protect yourself from judgment has actually become a prison that keeps love from reaching you. We wear these masks because we are terrified of what will happen if we take them off. We worry that if we show our true vulnerability, our doubts, or our limitations, the people around us will walk away. We are afraid that our true self is simply too much, or perhaps not enough, for the world to handle. So, you carry the heavy weight of everyone else's expectations on your shoulders, sacrificing your own peace to preserve theirs. You become the reliable one, the strong one, the one who handles everything without a flinch. But who takes care of the person who takes care of everyone else? Where do you go when the strong version of you breaks down in secret, far away from anyone's sight? This split between who you are and who you present to the world is where your vitality leaks away. It is why you can sleep for 8 hours and still wake up feeling like you haven't rested in years. Your exhaustion isn't physical. It is the fatigue of a soul that is tired of hiding. Every time you smile when you want to cry or agree when you want to object, you are abandoning yourself. You are telling your inner child that their true feelings are a liability, something to be ashamed of and tucked away. Jung understood this deeply when he spoke about the tension between our public persona and our true nature. The more wealth and energy we invest in the mask, the poorer and emptier we become on the inside. Taking off the mask doesn't mean you have to create a scene or completely upend your life in a single day. It begins with small, quiet moments of radical honesty. It means allowing your face to fall flat when you are alone in your room, letting the forced smile go, and letting the tears come if they need to. It means giving yourself permission to say, "I don't have the answer to this right now," or "I am feeling incredibly overwhelmed today." When you begin to drop the performance, you might disappoint some people who preferred the convenient, compliant version of you. But you will finally give the real you a chance to breathe. The weight of the mask is too heavy a price to pay for a belonging that isn't even real. It is time to let yourself be seen, exactly as you are. There comes a point where the strategies that used to save you simply stop working. Maybe you used to find comfort in over-preparing for every minor event. Or perhaps you managed your anxiety by trying to control every variable in your daily routine. Then, one day, you find yourself staring at a grocery store shelf, completely paralyzed by a simple choice. Or you feel an overwhelming wave of exhaustion from a routine conversation. The old map you've been using to navigate your life has expired. You haven't failed. The terrain has just changed. The discomfort you feel is the reality that you can no longer navigate your future using the exact same blueprints that built your past. Think about how terrifying it is when the tools that always brought you a sense of security suddenly leave you feeling completely unprotected. For years, you might have relied on intellectualizing your feelings, analyzing your problems until they felt small and manageable. Or maybe your coping mechanism was simply to work harder, believing that if you just put enough effort into a relationship, a career, or a life transition, you could force it to work. You had a specific formula for handling life. It was a map you drew based on your past experiences, your childhood conditioning, and your survival instincts. And for a long time, that map kept you safe. It got you to where you are today. And you owe that old map a debt of gratitude. But suddenly, you hit a season where the old rules no longer apply. You do everything right. You follow every step of your usual routine. And yet, the anxiety still bleeds through. You try to fix the problem using the same logical approaches that worked a year ago. But the gears just spin in place, grinding against each other. It feels like you are speaking a language that nobody understands anymore, least of all yourself. This realization usually brings a deep sense of panic. You begin to think that you are losing your grip, or that you are somehow breaking down. You look at your daily life and wonder why the things that used to give you a sense of identity and purpose now feel completely hollow and irrelevant. This breakdown of the old map is often a quiet, agonizing experience. It happens in the mundane moments of a regular afternoon, while you are waiting for water to boil, or while you are watching the rain hit the window pane. A sudden wave of pointlessness hits you. You realize that the goals you have been chasing are no longer your goals, and the path you are on is leading to a destination you no longer wish to reach. The fear of being lost can be completely overwhelming. When you don't know who you are, without your old coping mechanisms, you feel incredibly vulnerable, like a house that has had its walls stripped away in the middle of a storm. We try so hard to patch up the old map. We tape the torn edges. We try to force the new landscape to fit our old drawings, and we blame ourselves for getting lost. We think, if I could just be more disciplined, if I could just go back to how things were, everything would be fine. But you cannot unlearn the growth that has already happened inside you. You cannot squeeze yourself back into a version of life that you have structurally outgrown. The old map isn't failing because you are weak. It is failing because you are being called to step into a larger, more authentic reality. The old ways of surviving are no longer enough for the person you are becoming. Carl Jung once noted that we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning, for what was great in the morning will be little at evening, and what in the morning was true will at evening have become a lie. The transition between the morning and the afternoon of your life, the space between the old map and the new one, is a wilderness. It is a period of completely not knowing. It means sitting with the discomfort of having no clear direction and no immediate answers. It means learning to tolerate the emptiness without rushing to fill it with the first familiar distraction you can find. Being lost is not a mistake. It is a necessary, sacred pause. When the old map completely fails, it forces you to stop looking down at the worn-out lines drawn by your past fears. It forces you to look up, to look around, and to look deeply within. It is only when you admit that you no longer know the way forward, that you become truly open to finding a brand new path. The collapse of your old certainty is actually the birth of your true freedom. You are being given an open canvas, and though the blank space feels terrifying right now, it is the only place where a truly honest life can be drawn. The moment we start to feel that internal misalignment, our instinct is to move faster. We sign up for new courses, we rearrange our furniture, or we throw ourselves into a new hobby, anything to avoid the silence. Because if we stop, we might actually have to listen to what that discomfort is trying to tell us. It is terrifying to pause when the world demands constant forward momentum. You worry that if you slow down, even for a moment, you might lose your edge. Or worse, you might discover that you don't actually like the direction your life is heading. But running faster on a treadmill still leaves you in the exact same place. Think about what happens when you finally get a moment of stillness. Maybe it's a quiet evening when your plans get canceled, or those few minutes right before you fall asleep. Instead of feeling relaxed, a strange, jittery restlessness creeps into your chest. Your mind immediately starts racing, searching for something, anything to occupy your attention. You look for a project to finish, an article to read, or a task to complete. We have become so addicted to the feeling of being busy that stillness feels like an emergency. We confuse movement with progress, and we convince ourselves that as long as we are tired at the end of the day, we must be doing something right. But underneath that constant urge to stay busy is a deep, trembling fear. We are afraid of what we will find in the quiet. If you stop moving, the noise of the world fades away, and the background hum of your own life becomes deafening. You might hear the echo of your own loneliness. You might realize how deeply unfulfilled you are in a situation you have spent years building. You might have to confront the reality that you are exhausted down to your very bones, and that the life you are working so hard to maintain is actually starving your inner self. Staying busy is the most socially acceptable defense mechanism we have. It allows us to feel productive while we are actively running away from our own truth. Carl Jung once suggested that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. We will exhaust ourselves. We will take on obligations we don't have room for, and we will burn our energy to a cinder, just so we don't have to sit alone in a room with our own thoughts. We treat stillness as a vulnerability, a crack in our armor where the difficult feelings can leak through. So, you keep your hands full and your mind occupied. You become a master of distraction, constructing a wall of daily routines and endless responsibilities to keep the truth at bay. But avoidance doesn't make the pain go away. It just buries it deeper into your body, where it turns into physical tension, sleepless nights, and a heavy, unexplained sadness. The fear of stopping is also the fear of being left behind. We look around and see everyone else seemingly moving forward, achieving landmarks, and keeping pace with the relentless rhythm of modern life. You worry that if you take your foot off the gas, even for a brief season, you will lose your place in line. You worry about what others will think if you say, "I can't do this right now," or "I need to pause." We treat rest as something we have to earn after a collapse, rather than a fundamental human need. We wait until our bodies force us to stop through total burnout, rather than choosing to pause out of respect for our own well-being. Choosing to stop is an act of radical bravery. It means looking at the fast-moving current of your life and having the courage to step onto the riverbank. It means allowing yourself to feel the full weight of your fatigue without judging yourself for it. When you first slow down, the silence won't feel peaceful immediately. It will probably feel uncomfortable, loud, and unsettling. The unresolved feelings you've been outrunning will catch up to you. But that is exactly what needs to happen. Those feelings aren't there to destroy you. They are just waiting for you to finally give them your attention. When you stop running, you give your soul permission to speak. You open up a space where healing can actually begin. You realize that you don't have to constantly prove your worth by doing, creating, or fixing. You are allowed to just exist. The world will not fall apart if you close your eyes and take a deep breath. By stopping the frantic race to nowhere, you finally give yourself the chance to figure out where you actually want to go. To truly heal, we have to look at the parts of ourselves we've spent years pushing into the dark. Think about the anger you suppressed because you wanted to be seen as easygoing, or the deep sadness you hid because you didn't want to be a burden to your loved ones. Carl Jung noted, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When you feel that sudden, intense irritation at a colleague who sets firm boundaries and walks away at 5 o'clock, it usually isn't about them. It's often your own neglected need for rest crying out from underneath your forced people-pleasing. Those feelings aren't flaws. They are just pieces of you waiting to be acknowledged. Think about how early in life we learn to divide ourselves into pieces. We quickly figure out which parts of us get love and approval, and which parts get disapproval or rejection. If you were loud and expressive as a child, perhaps someone told you to sit down and be quiet, so you buried your enthusiasm. If you showed fear, perhaps you were told to be strong, so you locked your vulnerability away in a dark room. We build a beautifully curated closet of our best traits to show the world, while we throw everything else into the basement of our minds. We lock the door and pretend those parts don't belong to us anymore, hoping that if we ignore them long enough, they will simply disappear. But those disowned pieces don't die. They just sit in the dark, growing lonely, hungry, and desperate for your attention. And because they are neglected, they don't show up in gentle ways. They bleed through your life when you least expect it. They show up as a sudden, overwhelming wave of resentment during a perfectly normal conversation with your partner. They show up as that heavy, unexplainable guilt you feel when you try to take an afternoon just for yourself. They show up in the way you harshly criticize other people for making choices that you secretly wish you had the courage to make. Every time you react with intense, out-of-proportion emotion to a minor situation, it is a disowned piece of your story knocking on the floorboards from below. It takes so much daily energy to keep those basement doors shut. We walk around completely exhausted because we are constantly fighting an internal war against ourselves. We treat our envy, our weakness, our anger, and our deep desire for attention as if they are monsters out to destroy us. But if you look closely at those traits, you will find that they are just wounded, exhausted parts of you that were forced to adapt to a world that didn't fully see them. Your envy is often just a distorted arrow pointing toward a desire you've denied yourself. Your anger is often just a fiercely protective boundary that you were never allowed to enforce. Meeting these parts of yourself requires a profound shift from judgment to curiosity. It means that the next time you feel a heavy wave of sadness or a sharp flash of resentment, instead of immediately trying to push it away or fix it, you sit down with it. You look at it with the same kindness you would offer to a close friend who is hurting. You ask it, "Where did you come from? And what do you need me to understand right now?" It is deeply uncomfortable to welcome back the pieces of yourself that you have spent a lifetime hating. But wholeness is impossible without them. You cannot heal what you refuse to look at. When you finally open those closed doors and let the light in, something incredible happens. The monsters turn out to be just lost children. The energy that you spent trying to suppress them is suddenly returned to you. You begin to feel more solid, more grounded, and more real. You stop looking for everyone else to be perfect because you have finally accepted the beautiful, messy complexity of your own humanity. Reclaiming your disowned pieces is how you stop being a fractured version of yourself. It is how you tell your inner self that all of you is worthy of love, all of you belongs, and none of you has to hide in the dark anymore. We are conditioned to look outside of ourselves for validation that we are doing okay. We wait for a manager to tell us we are capable, a partner to tell us we are worthy, or a friend to validate our choices. But relying on external applause is a fragile way to live. When you feel completely disconnected from your own core, no amount of outside praise can fill that void. You can receive the highest compliment on a project you spent weeks on, and yet, 5 minutes later, the hollow feeling returns. The permission you are searching for to change, to slow down, or to choose a different path cannot be granted by anyone else. It has to come from within. Think about how often you hesitate before making a choice, waiting for someone else to nod their head first. You want to change your career. You want to leave a relationship that drains you, or you simply want to change your mind about a commitment you made weeks ago. But instead of trusting the deep, quiet ache inside you that says this isn't right anymore, you go around gathering opinions. You ask your friends, your family, or your coworkers what they think you should do. You are secretly hoping someone will hand you a golden ticket that says, "You are allowed to do what makes you happy." We treat our own lives as if we are students waiting for a teacher to grade our choices and tell us we passed the test. This constant need for validation comes from a place of deep self-distrust. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your internal compass couldn't be trusted. Maybe you made a mistake in the past that cost you dearly, or maybe you grew up around people who constantly questioned your judgment. So, you handed the steering wheel of your life over to the crowd. You let the consensus of other people decide what is successful, what is meaningful, and what is safe. But the crowd doesn't have to live with the consequences of your choices. They don't have to lie awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, feeling the heavy suffocation of a life that doesn't fit. You are the only one who has to feel the texture of your days from the inside out. Carl Jung once reflected on how we often project our own inner authority onto others, living under the delusion that someone out there knows the secret to our happiness better than we do. We turn our mentors, our partners, or cultural expectations into judges who hold the keys to our freedom. But this is a heavy burden to place on other people, and it is a profound betrayal of your own inner self. Every time you prioritize someone else's comfort or opinion over your own deep knowing, you are telling your soul that its voice doesn't matter. You are trading your authenticity for a temporary drop of approval. And that is a bargain that will leave you emotionally bankrupt every single time. The truth is, if you wait for everyone around you to agree with your choices, you will spend your entire life standing completely still. The people who love you might want to keep you safe, but their definition of safety is often based on the version of you they are already comfortable with. When you start to grow, change, or demand a more meaningful existence, it can make others uncomfortable. It forces them to look at their own lives and their own compromises. If you wait for their permission to heal, you are giving them the power to keep you small. You do not need an official announcement, an encouraging speech, or a green light from the world to start taking care of your own mental and emotional survival. Claiming your own permission is a quiet, internal shift. It happens when you look at your own exhaustion, your own sadness, or your own longing, and you say, "This is enough evidence for me." You don't need a professional diagnosis or a group consensus to justify your need for rest, your need for boundaries, or your need for change. Your discomfort is your permission. The fact that your current life is hurting you is all the proof you need to start moving towards something truer. You are the author of your own story, and it is time to stop asking everyone else for permission to write the next chapter. Take the pen back, trust your own hand, and step into the life that belongs entirely to you. What if the feeling that nothing is right is actually a profound form of guidance? What if it is your deepest self staging an intervention? When your body feels heavy, when your focus shatters, and when your enthusiasm vanishes, these are not system failures. They are boundary markers. Your inner self is effectively withdrawing its investment from a life that no longer fits who you are becoming. It's like wearing a pair of shoes that are 2 sizes too small. The pain isn't a sign that your feet are broken. It's a sign that the shoes need to change. Think about how we typically treat our emotional pain. The moment a wave of anxiety hits, or a heavy sadness settles into our chest, we treat it like an intruder. We reach for anything that will numb the sensation. We throw ourselves into extra projects. We scroll through endless feeds, or we try to rationalize the feeling away by telling ourselves we have no right to be unhappy. We view discomfort as a flaw in our character, a sign that we are failing at life, or that we are simply not resilient enough. But by treating our pain as an enemy, we miss the vital message it is trying to deliver. Your discomfort is not a random glitch in your emotional programming. It is an intelligent, deeply caring response from a part of you that refuses to let you sleepwalk through your existence. When you feel a profound sense of emptiness after achieving a milestone, that emptiness is trying to tell you that you are climbing a ladder, leaned against the wrong wall. When you feel an intense irritability over a minor change in your daily schedule, that frustration is trying to show you just how thin your margins have become. Your system is screaming for rest, for authenticity, and for a change of direction. But because it cannot speak in words, it speaks through the only language that will force you to stop, the language of discomfort. Carl Jung once noted that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. When we refuse to face the real, necessary pain of changing our lives, the pain of setting boundaries, leaving unfulfilling situations, or admitting we were wrong, we end up living with a chronic, low-grade misery that stains everything we do. We try to avoid the sharp, short-term pain of growth, and in doing so, we sentence ourselves to a lifetime of stagnation. The discomfort you are feeling right now is that legitimate suffering. It is the friction of your true self rubbing against the artificial constraints of the life you have built. It is painful because it is breaking through the old shell to let something new grow. Imagine what would happen if you stopped fighting the discomfort and instead sat down with it, treating it as an honored guest. What if you looked at your exhaustion not as a weakness to be overcome with more caffeine and willpower, but as an elegant boundary designed to protect your remaining energy? What if you looked at your lack of motivation not as laziness, but as your inner self refusing to give its precious life force to things that don't matter to you anymore? When you shift from fighting your feelings to listening to them, the entire landscape changes. The pain stops being a meaningless punishment and becomes a map showing you exactly where you need to heal. This inner wisdom is fiercely loyal to your true potential. It will make you uncomfortable in a luxury environment if that environment is starving your mind. It will make you feel lonely in a crowd of superficial connections because it wants you to find real belonging. It will ruin your peace in a stable but dead-ending situation because it knows you were meant for a larger, more honest life. It is an incredible act of love from your soul. It is saying, I love you too much to let you be content with a life that is too small for you. So the next time that heavy, unsettling feeling arrives on a quiet afternoon, don't try to push it away. Don't run to fix it or hide from it. Take a deep breath, place a hand over your heart, and acknowledge the truth of the moment. Welcome the discomfort as a sign life is still moving inside you. It is a harsh teacher, yes, but it is the most honest one you will ever have. It is shaking you awake because the slumber you were in was slowly killing your spirit. Trust the ache. Listen to the friction. It is the beginning of your way back to a life that feels entirely right. To rebuild that connection with yourself, you have to learn to listen all over again. And that language rarely uses loud, clear words. It speaks in physical reactions. It's the sudden tightness in your chest when you say yes to a request you desperately wanted to say no to. It's the unexpected burst of genuine energy you feel when you spend 20 minutes working on a creative project just for yourself, without care for the outcome. Paying attention to these shifts isn't selfish. It is an act of survival. You are learning to recognize what feeds your inner life and what starves it. Think about how long it has been since you actually paid attention to what your body is trying to tell you. We treat our bodies like machines, expecting them to perform on command, to push through exhaustion, and to carry us through stressful days without a complaint. But your inner self doesn't communicate through logical arguments or bulleted lists. It communicates through the heavy weight in your stomach when you walk into an environment that drains you. It communicates through the sudden, deep sigh that leaves your lungs when you finally step away from a toxic conversation. It speaks through the tension in your shoulders, the shallow pattern of your breath, and the way your entire system relaxes when you are around someone who truly safe. We have spent so much time living entirely in our heads, trying to analyze our way through life, that we have become fluent in the language of worry and completely deaf to the language of our own truth. You can spend hours debating a choice in your mind, weighing the pros and cons, trying to figure out the sensible path, while your body has already made the decision. Your stomach has already tightened. Your heart has already dropped. Your core always knows the truth long before your intellect has time to catch up and rationalize it away. Learning to listen means lowering your gaze from the chaotic thoughts in your mind down into the quiet, steady intelligence of your physical frame. Carl Jung once reflected that the body is not just a physical vessel, but the visible expression of our inner life, carrying the stories and wounds we try so hard to forget. When we ignore our inner voice, it doesn't just give up. It speaks through our physical well-being. The chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix, the persistent tension that locks up your neck, the sudden waves of lightheadedness when you think about your future. These are not random accidents. They are your core screaming for your attention because you have ignored its gentler whispers for far too long. It is using the only volume it has left to make you stop and look at your life. Learning this language requires a great deal of patience because you cannot force it or rush it. It begins in the ordinary moments of your day. It means that when you are sitting at your desk and you feel a sudden, heavy wave of dread, you don't immediately reach for a distraction to push it down. Instead, you pause. You take a breath, you tune in, and you ask yourself, what did I just say yes to? What boundary did I just let someone cross? What part of me am I hiding right now? It means honoring the small sparks of life that show up unexpectedly. The sudden warmth you feel when you listen to a specific piece of music, or the quiet sense of peace that washes over you when you decide to spend an hour alone in nature instead of attending an obligation. This is a practice of micro-honesty. It is about validating your own subtle reactions instead of gaslighting yourself by saying, I shouldn't feel this way, or it's not a big deal. If it drains your energy, it is a big deal. If it makes you feel hollow, it matters. You are rebuilding a broken relationship with your most loyal companion, your own true self. Every time you notice a physical reaction and adjust your actions to honor it, even if it just means taking a 5-minute break to breathe when your chest feels tight, you are sending a message to your core that it is finally safe, that it is being heard, and that its wisdom is trusted. As you become fluent in this inner language, the confusion that has clouding your life begins to lift. You stop needing to figure everything out intellectually because you have a deep, instinctual compass guiding you. You begin to notice a beautiful alignment happening. The gap between what you feel on the inside and how you act on the outside starts to close. You are no longer dragging yourself through a life that doesn't fit. You are being guided by the quiet, infallible intelligence of your own being. You are finally learning to trust yourself, one breath, one sensation, and one honest moment at a time. Reclaiming your life requires a willingness to make choices that might disappoint other people. It means accepting that you cannot be the custodian of everyone else's comfort at the expense of your own well-being. When you start setting boundaries, whether that means declining an invitation, changing a career path, or simply choosing to spend an evening alone doing absolutely nothing, you will feel an initial wave of guilt. That guilt is normal. It is just the old conditioning leaving your system. As Carl Jung beautifully put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege requires you to finally take your own side. Think about how much of your life has been governed by the fear of being difficult. You have likely spent years twisting yourself into knots to ensure that everyone around you feels comfortable, secure, and content. You became the person who absorbs everyone else's stress, the one who modifies their tone so they don't upset anyone, and the one who folds their own desires neatly away whenever they clash with someone else's plans. We call this being nice or being supportive. But if we are completely honest, it is often a survival strategy. We give away our authority because we are terrified that if we stand firmly in our own truth, we will be cast out, judged, or left behind. But every single time you choose someone else's comfort over your own deepest truth, you are actively abandoning yourself. You are handing over the keys to your emotional house and letting other people decide how you should live in it. This is why you feel that slow, toxic buildup of resentment on a regular afternoon. That resentment isn't because the people around you are malicious. It is because you have trained them to expect your compliance. It is your inner self crying out against the injustice of being constantly pushed to the back of the line. Reclaiming your authority means realizing that your primary responsibility in this life is not to manage the emotional climate of everyone around you. It is to protect the integrity of your own being. This shift is rarely dramatic or loud. It happens in the small, trembling moments where you choose to say no out loud, even when your heart is pounding against your ribs. It is the moment you stop over-explaining your choices. When you give away your authority, you feel the need to provide a lengthy justification for every boundary you set. You create elaborate excuses just to take a day off, or you provide endless reasons for why you cannot attend an event. When you reclaim your authority, a simple, kind, and firm statement is enough. You realize that "I don't have the capacity for this right now" is a complete sentence that requires no further defense. Carl Jung spent a lifetime observing how people suffer when they live lives that belong to someone else. Whether that someone else is a demanding family expectation, a cultural script, or a fear of social disapproval. He understood that until you take ownership of your own path, you are simply an actor reciting lines written by a committee. Taking back your authority means stepping off the stage of public opinion. It means accepting that you might be misunderstood. It means realizing that someone else's disappointment in your boundaries is a reflection of their expectations, not a reflection of your worth. You have to be willing to let others think whatever they need to think so that you can finally breathe. This process is deeply emotional because it requires you to reparent the part of yourself that is still terrified of getting into trouble. It means sitting with the intense discomfort of that initial wave of guilt and realizing that guilt does not mean you have done something wrong. It simply means you are doing something new. It is the growing pain of an emerging self-respect. You are teaching your system that it is safe to be firm, that it is healthy to have limits, and that you are allowed to protect your peace with a fierce, unwavering devotion. When you reclaim your authority, the entire weight of your life shifts. You stop looking around the room to see if everyone approves of your existence. You look inward instead. You build a deep, solid center that cannot be easily shaken by a passing comment or a disapproving look. You begin to make choices based on what builds life inside you, rather than what merely placates the people around you. You are no longer waiting for someone to crown you the ruler of your own life. You are stepping onto the throne yourself, recognizing that your time, your energy, and your heart are yours alone to govern. This process of self-discovery isn't about arriving at some perfect, flawless destination where you never feel anxious or confused again. It is about building a relationship with yourself that can withstand the storms. It's knowing that when the world gets loud and confusing, you have a safe place to return to inside your own mind. The next time that familiar ache returns and nothing feels right, don't try to fix it immediately. Don't try to distract yourself. Just sit with it for a moment. Take a deep breath and recognize it for what it truly is. An invitation to come back home to the person you were always meant to be. Think about what it really means to come home to yourself. It means you stop treating your life like a renovation project that is never quite finished. You stop looking at your history, your mistakes, and your vulnerabilities as flaws that need to be aggressively scrubbed away. Instead, you begin to offer yourself a quiet, unconditional hospitality. You walk through the rooms of your own heart, and you welcome everything you find there. The lingering sadness, the unresolved doubts, the quiet longings, and the fierce resilience. You realize that you don't have to become someone else to be worthy of peace. You just have to finally show up for the person you already are. For so long, you may have lived like an exile from your own life, seeking shelter in the approval of strangers, the validation of a career, or the security of predictable routines. You built a beautiful life on the outside, but you left the front door of your inner world locked and dark. Coming home means turning the lights back on. It means sitting at your own kitchen table in the quiet hours of the morning and realizing that the most important relationship you will ever navigate is the one happening right here, between your breath and your bones. It is the profound relief of realizing that you can stop searching the horizon for a savior, because the person who can truly care for you has been right here all along. Carl Jung once suggested that the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. That light is your awareness, your self-compassion, and your willingness to stay present with your own experience. It doesn't mean your days will suddenly be free of friction or that you will never experience sadness again. Rather, it means that when the heavy seasons arrive, you will no longer abandon yourself to navigate them alone. You will be there to hold your own hand through the panic. You will be there to validate your own exhaustion when the world demands more than you can give. You become your own sanctuary, a steady anchor in a world that is constantly trying to pull you out to sea. Imagine the freedom of waking up in the morning and not needing to perform for anyone, not even yourself. You drop the heavy scripts, you let go of the rigid expectations, and you simply allow yourself to unfold naturally into the day. If you are tired, you let yourself rest without guilt. If you are sad, you let the tears fall without needing to explain them. If you are inspired, you follow that quiet spark without worrying about where it leads or what others will think of it. This is the ultimate destination of your healing journey. It is not a place of absolute certainty, but a place of absolute self-acceptance. When you are truly home within yourself, the external world loses its power to shatter you. The opinions of others become just noise on the street outside your window. The transitions and changes of life stop feeling like threats to your survival and start feeling like the natural movement of growth. You have built a foundation that cannot be washed away by a difficult day or a sudden shift in circumstance. So, take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, and let the remaining tension drain from your body. The long journey through the wilderness is over. You don't have to run anymore. You are safe, you are seen, and you are finally home.